So we are now live, and I gotta do all the. Stuff on the back end of the thing. Hello, everybody. Come on, where's the studio? Change the time. What? Change, Tiffany. What do you mean? Change the time?
Oh, she's talking about day, daylight savings. No, the Senate, U.S. Senate is Ron. She's talking about the Senate has put a bill up there today to make daylight savings permanent.
So, like permanent. Arizona.
Yes, wish.
Okay. Good. I hope so. It's a freaking waste. It's waste. It's stupid. I like I like it. It's so much better when it's not.
Let me say hi to everyone.
And guys, I'm only here for the intro. I'm probably not gonna do the class today. I'm just not feeling it.
You want us to share your?
Yeah, you can. Days? Yeah, but my father passed away on Saturday night, and we had the memorial service today. So I'm just kind of not in the greatest of moods. Shoot. What class is this? This is class 15.
Our buddy Ethan just sent me a message that you remember that German insurance company that talked about all the jab injuries?
Mm-hmm.
He has been fired.
Interesting.
Uh-huh. I wonder if he's going to make a big deal about it. Tell you what, if we could get what is his name? Who's the head chef? Edward Dowd. He's been. We could get him on to an interview, Ron. That would be awesome.
By the way, I talked to Stan today, and he's agreed to do another show with us.
Great. Tracy E likes today's avatar. Yeah, it's a good one. It's one of my favorites. In fact, if anybody knows any good meme smith and you want to send me any, I'll gladly give you an email address because I'm running out. I'm down to like only about 5 or 6 that I haven't used already.
Dude, if you haven't watched the Digital Asset Investors show from this morning, you should. Because he's I'll send you the link. He's going, he's very, very he pays very close attention to all the stuff that's going on with the SEC and the Ethereum and all this other stuff. And it's he is on it like white on rice about how corrupt they are and how lazy they are. And one thing they were doing is they were highlighting the Library case. Library is a crypto, and they're thank you, Darren and Monica and everybody. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. He was talking how the SEC says, hey, if you're working on a project, come in, show us what you're doing, and we'll help you out. And every single one that has worked with the SEC trying to show them what they were going to do, the SEC was essentially building a dossier or a folder on every single one of them, and they've done actions on everybody who was transparent with them. But the people who weren't transparent with them are they're giving them a free pass, or they already had a deal behind the scenes to be transparent with them, and then they were going to say but if you look, all the he shows some interesting interviews with the guys that from library. It's a group that's being taken to court by the SEC, and he said they are it's just it's the corruption is just insane. He, doggone it, where is that thing? Shoot.
I've got about, 20 videos queued up that I've got to get to.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is if I don't get to a video in about 3 days, it seems that, with everything going on these days, it becomes outdated. I don't remember the last time. I don't remember the last time I had time to, do a deep history video. It's been weeks. Got one queued up right now for an interview, 3-hour interview between David Icke and a guy named Rose.
David Icke?
Yeah, Icke. Did I say it wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a series of long form interviews with this guy Rose, and I just subscribed to their channel. Looks like it's gonna be pretty interesting stuff.
But David Icke that's a big name, dude. That's a very big name.
Oh yeah, he's one of the pioneers. When you talk about being a digital soldier, he was one of the originals.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure I agree with him on 100% of his conclusions, but
nor I. But that doesn't, But I mean, he's definitely a warrior on the battlefield.
Yeah. I'm amazed he's got much of a platform left. I mean, he's just been out there so long, and he's irritated a lot of people.
Okay.
I have not spoken to Doug today, so I assume
neither have I. I tried to call him, but he didn't answer. But I don't think he has any cell reception at his place up there.
I sure hope we found a place to log on. He actually missed a Zoom call yesterday. We had a planning meeting for helping him expand his constitutional.
Well, I will say that he posted. He sent out his internet link, talking about the show. So I know he was planning on it. All right. Because he obviously wouldn't put the show out if he wasn't.
No.
Okay.
Wonder what the weather's like up there right now.
Haven't looked, but I can. Okay. I'm afraid to put this up until I hear from him, though.
What's that? The video?
Hey, DK made it. Yeah, I'm afraid to put the link into the Telegram chat if he doesn't show up.
Oh, gotcha.
When I first logged in, it was really funny, guys. I couldn't see myself. It was like my head was floating. You guys didn't see this. This was before we went live. But I was like, what? I was tripping Warhamster out. And he's like, dude, this is really freaky. I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. Well, I was wearing a green shirt, and it's obviously a no-no to wear a green shirt against a green screen because everything that's green is invisible. So, yeah, it was kind of funny.
When I get my green screen, I'll be fine because I don't think I own a green shirt. Actually, that's not true. I have one St. Patty's Day shirt that I
Well,
bust out about once a
I
year.
wore the green shirt today because at the service we wanted to make it. I told I everybody that I sent the message to. I said, hey, this is this is going to be a celebration of life. We don't want to make this a dark occasion. Come in casual, and come comfortable, and come in spring colors. And so I tried to emulate that, and not everybody did. Everybody, so uh,
How's your mom holding up?
she's good days and bad. Good days and bad. Today was, she was kind of riding that emotional roller coaster today. I was going to get up and say something, but it was so interesting. I learned so much about my dad today that I didn't know.
Like
Um,
some of his friends telling stories.
oh no, well, not just people that he touched, and
Hmm.
things that he did, stories that I had no idea that things that he had done. My dad was very, um, my dad was very humble, and he didn't boast. He just did. He was a leader. He didn't seek glory. He didn't seek um, glamour. He didn't seek recognition. Those things came when he earned it, but he wasn't trying. He never tried to aspire to get the recognition for the sake of being recognized. So, um, his mentality is very similar to what my mentality is in this space. It's like I put stuff out, and I don't do it because I don't I my motives in this movement are to wake people up, and to get people together, and to move forward, because the mission is the most critical component. And that was how my dad lived his life. So it's like, I now understand where I got that from.
Well, share with the audience. I did have the opportunity to speak with your father a number of months back, and what you're telling me was one of the last really coherent times he had. Is that right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So it was an honor to have made his acquaintance. And
Well, I think I was telling you, you were the last person that my dad was a pharmacist, and he was an expert in bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And I would say he was definitely in the upper echelon of healthcare practitioners who understood bioidentical hormones. He made it was his life. He loved that, and that was what he did for the last 20 years of his practice. Well, he had his own practice, and he only had his own pharmacy, and he couldn't make it work because he refused to take HMO insurance because they underpaid. So, um, anyway, what he did was he tried to find ways to be profitable without taking insurance, and the way he did it was to do a compounding pharmacy. And he did oh, there's Douglas. He did compounding, and he learned how to be. He was a certified clinical nutritionist, and he did everything that he could to. He started off in his pharmacy, started off being a pharmacist, being an apologist for the drug companies, and then by the time that his pharmaceutical career was over, he was doing everything that he could to get people off of medication. And um, so he was a free thinker. He didn't let people influence him. He was a reader. He was he was very much people would call him a conspiracy theorist because he did think for himself, and he was an avid reader of books. And so I think I got a lot of. I am very similar to my dad in many respects, but as he got older, he got so disenchanted with that kind of stuff. When I had have a huge interest in things, he didn't really want to talk about it because it was he wanted to focus more on positive things. So the one thing that we connected on was baseball. So just our mutual love of baseball. So anyway, Doug, I think you could probably tell from the conversation that I'm not really in a very chipper mood today. My father passed on Saturday, and we had his memorial service today. So I'm going to let you and Brady do the show. I'm going to monitor on the back end and just let you guys do the show today.
Well, I'm sorry that your father passed. My condolences.
Appreciate that. It was time, you know. I mean, it was just a little bit somber, but you know, I tell this story. This is crazy. You know, I have a friend of mine who lives down in San Diego. He actually lives down in Lakeside, and he sent me a message on Sunday morning saying he was sorry about hearing about my dad. And then he sent me a message yesterday, and he said, "Hey, we both lost our dads this weekend." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." He said my dad fell downstairs and he had an accident. And he fell down a flight of stairs, and I don't know if he was a head injury, he broke his neck or what, but it was he died at home by himself. And given the choice, I didn't like it with that my dad was suffering, but at the same time being selfish about it. It was at least I had the opportunity to say to say my goodbyes and to say the things. My friend didn't have that was taken away from him. So I don't know which is better, but um but anyway, I don't want to dampen the mood, so I'm going to let you guys do the show, and I will bow out. And thank you everybody for all your kind words, and I'll be behind the scenes today and let Warhamster and Doug take you through Article 1, Section 9, and Article 2. So see you guys. See you guys next week.
All right, Ron. We'll catch up with you soon.
All right.
Yeah, we're in Article 2.
I thought so too.
Yeah, but that's okay.
I think you put out an email that said otherwise today, Doug. I think that's why Ron and I were both under that assumption. Then
Really?
Yes.
I had the same impression.
Yes.
I had this.
On the email you put out, it's Article 1, Section 9, last clause, Article 2, execution of the office of president. Check your email. That's what you sent out today.
But I agree with you, Doug.
I made a copy of the email. Oh, it says Article 1, Section 9 and Article 2. I didn't erase the part before Article 2. Okay.
So anyway, whatever.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you're not at home and not following your.
No harm, no foul, brother. It's all good. I just copy and paste.
Yeah, I lost my father in '99, and he drove his car off of a road drunk in a different state. So, yeah, it's regardless of how it happens, it's a rough thing to go through. So, all I've got to say is thank God I had the opportunity to spend some time with him last time I was at your house.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. Again, say goodbye again.
All right. Okay. Yeah, but boy, that email's. I'm looking at it now. I'm like, yeah, I put both. If you look carefully, it says Article 2 also. So it's got multi-personality disorder. Multiple personality disorder is what my email has.
See, my problem is I keep using the same Constitution, pocket Constitution over and over again, where I've got notes in, and it's harder for me to check which class and where we're stopping here. So I'm confusing myself. I have not been like you and used a different one each time because I need to refer to my notes.
Yeah, well, the good news is it stopped raining where I'm at. The bad news is I couldn't get to town, but a friend of mine has internet. He figures is fast enough I can do this. So his house, green screen is a portable green screen that Ron actually gave me that I took with me. So, well, hopefully it doesn't you get that or whatever, where I vanish for a moment. We'll see, because definitely not as fast, up out here in the hills. For those of you who are not familiar, I am out of state this week. And I have my own property in Brookings, Oregon, where my father actually lived before he passed away in 99. He left me the property, and my father was an alcoholic and drove his car right off of the side of the road, and with 4 times the legal limit in his system, less than about a year after he retired. So there you go. All right. Yeah, we are in Article 2, because if you remember last week we talked about natural born citizen. Warhamster, it's good to see you, sir. I'm glad that you're looks like you've got an axe today. So so I don't know if you have an axe to grind with me, but
No, not likely. No, we had a really good time. Had a really good time at the Reawaken America tour event over the weekend. We met a lot of big names in the movement. Ron was able to hang out with us for a day before he got his bad news, and Alpha and I got to meet in person for the first time. So that was a really good time.
Yeah, then there was also what's called a Committee of 7 meeting, and I wasn't there, but as there's a member of our team, not that the audience is overly curious, but maybe you are a little bit. A member of our team, Sally, and I began talk that night after the meeting. She kind of filled me in about how everything went. And what had happened was the rain was so heavy that for that particular meeting, I was just going to use my phone. And the signal was in and out, whatever. And then I'm like, well, I'll go down to town, and I get in the truck in the rain to go down to town, and a couple of my neighbors are outside because a tree had fallen on the road, the only way out and the only way in, dirt road. And it's like, all right, I'll be back with my chainsaw. So while you guys are doing the meeting, I'm out there helping cut a tree that had fallen across the road. So wet is a wet hamster. Okay, so but thank you for being here. Yeah, it's good to see you guys. We're here. This is the only class really that's going on this week, aside from my radio show on Saturday nights on kprz.com, Kpraise, because all of my live shows, I'm out of state, so can't do them, and so everybody's taking the week off, and so I'm enjoying my opportunity to relax. Got some rain, getting a lot of reading done. I actually have 2 Jordan Peterson books with me, along with some books regarding my my project, 1607 project that I'm working on, and so it's been interesting why I'm so tired. Then I've taken a nap like each day. Also, maybe it's the fact that I've got to like cut on trees in the rain and stuff. I don't know, but so where we left off is we finished with Natural Born Citizen, but I said that I would kind of rehash just a little bit to catch everybody up. And so it is good to see you guys. I am looking at the chat room, so if you guys have a question, I'll try to see it, and if not, I'm sure Warhamster will field it. He's in charge there to do whatever he can and add whatever needs to be added. And Warhamster, I'm glad you're here. All right, so common law books. Oh yeah, well, here's the thing about common law, real quick, Darren, to field something from the chat room, is common law is good and bad. It's good in the sense that it is the basic law that everybody's supposed to understand. It's the basic rule of law, and common law is a wonderful thing when the people are informed and they understand what the law is. The bad thing about common law is common law tends not to be written. It tends to be what is commonly understood, and it is influenced by the whims of society and the whims of the judicial system. So common law tends to be, well, living and breathing, kind of like what they try to make our Constitution, which is not supposed to be living and breathing. And so while common law is a wonderful thing in the sense that it is the people's law, it is a bad thing because it tends not to be written. It tends not to be static, and it tends to majority rules. It tends to be very democratic, and that can be a problem. And so one of the keys of the Constitution, one of the reasons it's written down is to get away from that living and breathing common law kind of idea. So while common law in some ways has its advantages, and the founders even refer to common law when it comes to local law, but when it comes to the broader scope of common law, they were trying to get away from it. Because that was the whole point of writing a constitution. So when we say common law, there's also two ways of looking at it. There's the local stuff that is within the people's realm, which they do refer to in the 7th Amendment. But from a larger scope, they were trying to really get away from that. And part of the thing about common law, the contract, all of this stuff is when it came to America, remember during the American Revolution, only a third of the people actually supported the revolution, the push for independence. A third really didn't care, just as long as they could still live their life. And then a third were, and obviously this wasn't exact numbers, but largely this is about how it was divided up. And about a third were what was called loyalists or Tories. And they were still loyal to the crown, to the British Empire. They wanted the United States to remain under the protection or the umbrella of the empire. They believed that consent to the governed and all that could not work, would not make it, that you need to be under some type of ruling elite, some solid, strong body of government to control everything. Otherwise, chaos will ensue because people will make bad decisions on their own and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I wonder where that idea came from.
Yeah, collectivistic idea. Yeah. Well, we can get into Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Well, we can get into even other things that are older than that. But I will say this. One of the main, and now kind of to tap onto what Derek is saying in the chat room, we are where we are because we've abandoned what was originally there. And a part of that is that allegiance. Part of that is we're not worried about the Tories anymore. In fact, the Tories have taken over. The Tories are in control. Now, maybe not literally the Tories in the sense of wanting to go back to the British Empire, but the people who believe that we should have one leg in the old world and not be taking care of things in our own way, separate, disconnected. There's this belief that if we're not tied into the central banking system, if we're not tied into the centralized international legal system, if we're not tied into the international trade system and having quote unquote free trade, and if we're not, involved in every single treaty and war that seems to pop up, well, then somehow we just can't do it on our own. And to believe otherwise, you're an isolationist, you're a protectionist, and you're just a horrible person. And I beg to differ. And I believe that allegiance to this country is a very important thing. I believe that loyalties to only the United States, not having divided loyalties, not only to other countries, but other ideas. What we are experiencing in this country is a foreign idea. It's not an American thing. It's other than American. And with that, I believe that is why they wanted to make sure that the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, was a natural-born citizen, and that the members of Congress all had to be citizens. Citizens, an important thing. If you are a citizen and you were a citizen of another country, when you become a citizen of the United States, you renounce your citizenship, you renounce your allegiance, you renounce your loyalty to that other country. And so the understanding was that you as a citizen, and I know there's people out there that think the word citizen is a bad word, and I say it's a good word, that a citizen means that you have a loyalty to this country, not to the government, to the country. I had one of the things I've written in my next book, the 1607 Project, which kind of ties into what I'm talking about, kind of ties into where we're going today with the Constitution. And I have not told this story in any of my classes. You're the first to hear it. When I was going to night school in the 90s, going to college, I was working construction by day. And I'm not kidding. My job was to dig ditches. I dug ditches for a living. Now, granted, it wasn't with a shovel and a pick. It was with machinery. But nonetheless, Dad said if I didn't go to college, I'd wind up digging ditches for a living. And my brother, he told him the same thing. And lo and behold, one day, my brother and I on the same job were there. And my brother turns to me and says, Dad said if we didn't go to college, we wind up digging ditches for a living. Well, here we are. And that's what we were doing. So I decided to start going to night school. And I mean, I'm getting up at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning to work in construction. Plus I'm going to night school. It was kind of an interesting time in my life. How I pulled some of it off, I don't know. But during one of the semesters, I befriended this black conservative gentleman who was a banker. Interestingly enough, he was an executive for a local bank, though not the same kind of banker you see with Federal Reserve or something like that in the international banking system, though he was connected to these people in one way or another. And he was telling me how, as a child, his dad always put the American flag up at their house. And when it got tattered, he would take down that flag and replace it as soon as possible. And it was a big deal to his dad to always have his flag flying. And this young man, even back in the 90s, had been listening to the propaganda in the education system and in his neighborhood where he was growing up at the time. His dad. How can you be so proud to fly the flag of a country that has treated you so wrongly as a black man? Slavery, civil rights, racism. Now, remember, this is back in the mid-90s I'm having this conversation, long before the CRT and all this stuff that's going on now was full bloom. Its early beginnings, or maybe its middle stirrings, but the stir was definitely still there. In my opinion, racism was something that was in the rearview mirror, something that America was, not America is. But in his neighborhood, racism in the minds of the black community still existed, and the system was part of the problem. So black nationalism was part of the blame of that thinking. And his dad says, well, son, I fought for that flag in World War II. And this gentleman, by the way, that I was talking to at the time was much older than me. I was like early 30s at the time. And I think my friend was like in his 50s, early 50s, late 40s at the time. I mean, young from my perspective now, but not young from my perspective at the time. And he needed college in order to move up in his job. He didn't have a degree. He didn't have a bachelor's. He had moved up as high as he could as a banker, even became an executive. But if he wanted to move into a supervisory type role, he needed a degree. And so his dad says, well, son, I fought for that flag in World War II. And he says to his father, how could you even do that? How could you be proud of fighting for a country under a flag that has been nothing but racist to you and treated you wrong? And his father, according to my friend, responded, I am not flying the flag for the government, and I did not fight the war for the government. I fought it for my country, and I'm proud to be an American. What the government has done throughout history and what my country stands for are two different things.
I would agree with that.
It was a very pivotal moment in my life, actually. While I had grown up studying the Constitution and American history, And even though I had spent time in a black neighborhood for 3 years of my life, in North Long Beach, 4th grade through 6th grade, I had not really thought about it that way before. And so that was a man whose allegiance was to America, not to the government. So then that brings up January 6th. Were those people that are being detained insurrectionists? No, insurrection is not against the government. Insurrection is when it is against our system, our Constitution. That's the true insurrection. The people who are claiming insurrection are guilty of insurrection, and they are the ones who have violated this idea of allegiance. And now, a couple of presidents ago, Barack Obama had divided allegiance. His father, by his own admission, was not a citizen at the time of birth. So he wasn't a natural born citizen. There was a division of allegiance there then. Half of his allegiance, theoretically, would be to America because his mother was an American, and half of his allegiance would be to the rest of the world because his father was of the rest of the world. And the founding fathers were trying to guard against that. Now, obviously, no system's going to be perfect. There's going to be things that squeeze through the tracks. But the idea was if both parents are citizens at the time of one's birth, their allegiance to the country while they're in government is going to be true. Of course, there's going to be those who get into government who don't have an allegiance to America. They have a divided allegiance, or they believe that government is what America is about, not this idea of liberty, this heritage that we have. And don't let people tell you that we don't have a culture here in America. The American culture is the strongest culture in the world because it's the only culture that says we did it our way completely. We took all of those things that was wrong about the world, tossed it aside and said, nah, we're going to try something new and different that no one's ever tried before. The American experiment is an incredible culture that we have here in the United States. And so for those of you who want to say, oh, well, Americans or white people or whatever don't have culture, Americans have culture, not white people. Americans do.
And Doug, you can see it when you go to like events like the Reawaken tour that I was at over the weekend, being surrounded by thousands of patriots who share our values. I mean, you can't help but leave there just kind of floating on cloud, patriotic cloud nine. It's just the positive energy. The positive energy is different than anything I think I've ever experienced. That's been the best part about this whole movement is meeting so many like-minded individuals like yourself.
Well, I appreciate that. I've been involved in American politics my whole life. In high school, I actually, in high school, I would actually argue politics with a fellow high schooler who wound up co-valedictorian, Amanda Smith, who I know she's not watching this because she's still as Marxist as ever. My buddy Robert might be watching it. Robert and Amanda were the co-valedictorians, and they were both friends of mine. And I would get into these discussions with Amanda over politics during lunch, and crowds would surround us to watch us get into it. This was in the early 80s, the first term of Ronald Reagan when I was in high school. I graduated in 84. So now some of you are like, wow, he's old. And some of you are like, wow, he's young. I'm just right. But but
I didn't see that one coming.
I've been in politics a long time, but when it comes to local politics, going to rallies like you went to, it's been probably since 2007 that began to happen in my life. And I can remember my first rally was a Tea Party rally in Temecula in February of 2007, as a matter of fact. And the Tea Party was brand new. It was just emerging in places. And I was handing out pocket constitutions and answering questions about the Constitution. I'll take that back, 2008, February 2008. 2007 was, 2008. And I'm handing out pocket constitutions. And while I was surrounded by this love, these people who believe in this country, I also realized how little everybody knew. Now, I think today's pro-America movement is much more informed than it was then about Constitution and things like that.
A lot of the same
because I've done my job. I don't know, but they are more informed than they were. But that we're still not as informed as we need to be.
A lot of the same people that were involved in the Tea Party are the ones out in the front lines again today. Mm-hmm. After the Republican Party, thank you, Mitch McConnell, basically shafted the Tea Party in 2014. Mm-hmm. Same thing way he's trying to. I don't know what we call this. Was this Tea Party 2 or just call us the Patriot Movement? I think Patriot Movement's what most of us use.
I like to call it a pro-America Patriot Movement, something of those natures, a constitutional movement. I mean, let me. This is totally off topic, but let me say this. And for you, the audience, this is also going to be kind of new to you. Warhamster and I are a part of a group of people largely because of my classes that are trying to move things in the right direction. And I've got like 6 folks that really care about what I'm doing, meeting with me or meeting without me in this case, this week, who just want to get America right on the right track again. And we all understand that a large part of that is being informed, just understanding what we're fighting for, knowing how to fix the broken vehicle in the driveway. We need to understand the owner's manual. We need to become mechanics. We're still figuring that stuff out, some of us. And that's an important part of the whole. There's more to it than just that, but that's an important part. And I've been wanting to create a for-profit kind of thing. And I'm not going to go into the name because I don't want to risk things being stolen. But when it came to the Constitution, the word preservation was the word I wanted to use in relation to that. Warhamster says, nah, it's restoration. So, the question is the Constitution so gone that we're trying to restore it? Or do we still have enough to where we're trying to preserve it? And that's a good question. And for some people, it could be either or both. But I'm starting to believe, and I didn't want to believe this. I've been believing all these years that I've been involved that we're trying to preserve it. But now, where we're at the moment with this quick, crazy jump over the last year, I think restoration is the proper word. I think we're in a post-Constitution America right now. And we better get some semblance of it back. There are a couple of things that are hanging by a thread that aren't even in the original form, but they're close.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Amendment process, stuff like that. But for the most part, we've become a democracy. And it's dangerous.
We're seeing it right now, every single day.
Mm-hmm. Now, that brings me back to our pocket Constitution, or if you're looking online, the Constitution Online, which I believe is in the title of this, or the main page of this. So, no person except a natural-born citizen. Full allegiance here is what we're looking for. Or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution. Remember, the natural-born citizens of the day weren't old enough to run yet. The United States had only been technically a country since 1776. They really hadn't even established the naturalization, deal yet. They really didn't have. Well, who is a citizen of the United States? They really hadn't established that yet. At that moment, it was inhabitants. They were still working out the bugs. They were still creating the system. But they considered themselves citizens, but not natural-born citizens, because the oldest natural-born citizen, in other words, the only person who had 2 parents at the time of their birth that were Americans, citizens, we're 11 years old because America had only been a country since 1776. Samuel says, we are a constitutional all caps republic. Thank you. Exactly right.
Speaking of which, let me jump in here today real quick.
Yes.
Tulsi Gabbard was on with Tucker, and she called us a democratic republic, which was music to my ears because on Tucker's show, I like a lot of things he does, but he's always, and all of these other talking heads are always spouting off about our democracy, quote unquote.
Yeah, at least she was halfway there.
Yeah, to hear Tulsi Gabbard say republic, almost I had to do a double take.
Now, in my opinion, democratic republic isn't even exactly accurate. Well, we are a constitutional republic, and we do have some democratic procedures in our system, as we have talked about already in this class. At the time of the 1700s, early 1800s, the only office at the federal level being voted on by the people was the House. That was their voice in the system. The state legislatures actually had a more say on things at the time. State sovereignty, states' rights, which was a big deal to them. And we started losing the republic part through Andrew Jackson, the father of the Democratic Party in the 1820s and 1830s. And then we started losing the state sovereignty part after the war between the states, because states' rights and state sovereignty became bad words because of those states that had seceded, they were considered to have misbehaved. And even though it was perfectly legal for them to secede, the general public was convinced that it was wrong and illegal to secede. And we've been going downhill ever since. I mean, we're going downhill the moment the Constitution the ink was drying. But nonetheless, it really got bad after the war between the states. And I don't want to get into a war between the states conversation just yet. We've got upcoming amendments in the future that we can talk about that. So here we are. No person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained to the age of 35 years old. And think about that. That's a ripe old age when you consider that the average age of getting into Harvard and Yale was 13. And been 14 years a resident within the United States. They not only wanted to make sure you're a natural born citizen, but that your continuous record of being as a resident was even consistent over the last 14 years. They wanted as little foreign influence as possible. Then in the brackets, this is what they used to do. The 12th Amendment and the 25th Amendment changes a lot of this. But what's in brackets we'll still read to show you how they were doing it, how they originally wrote this part of the Constitution. And Samuel says Tulsi Gabbard is a member of George Soros's New World Society. I don't know the answer to that, but I don't 100% trust her, but she's definitely refreshing compared to the rest of the Democrats that we've dealt with.
Yeah, Sam is correct. She was listed as one of the young global leaders for World Economic Forum, and so was Dan Crenshaw. They were in the same class together. So
right.
Samuel, you are correct.
Well, you know what? I'm going to do something here real quick. Let me.
I've got a question. I've got a question for you while you're messing around. I've asked you this before, but I think it'll be good. The audience will appreciate this. So when they say you have to be 35 years old to be president, does that mean you got to be 35 to run or 35 on Inauguration Day?
That's a good question. I would say 35 on Inauguration Day.
I think that's what we decided when I asked you that last year.
Yeah, that would be my thinking. Okay, let me get back to our thing here now. I'm gonna share something. Matter of fact, I just created this morning. So hang on, let me pull this up. See this, I want to show you guys something. This is basically the political spectrum, and I want to explain something, and because Warhamster and I have had a lot of discussion about left and right. And I talk about the left a lot, but you never really hear me talk about the right. And there's a reason for that. The left definitely exists. There is definitely a left and a right. But the left and the right, as defined by today's mainstream media and today's political system and today's judges, doesn't exist. This is the true left and right. And if you'll look at this, far left is 100% government, far right is 0% government. So if you want to talk about right wing, true pure democracy and anarchy would really be the only things on the right. And the problem with democracy and anarchy is both of those things always wind up becoming oligarchy. So they are actually, for example, anarchy. When the anarchy happens, you're in chaos, people then cry out for order, and the very order that everybody else is crying out for, the people who created the chaos promise that order, and then they become the oligarchs taking over control, dictators. And so every anarchy always winds up becoming an oligarchy, what's on the far left. And I just put a list. The list is actually longer than that, but they all are oligarchies. You got all these isms and archies and crosses that.
And it's really part of the problem right there is we get so stuck on terminology, right versus left, that we don't address the real problem, which is the tyranny that's up above. And
exactly.
I think we should flip the axis and quit talking about right, left, and just start talking about too much government versus too little.
That's the reason why you don't hear me talk about right. Anybody who believes in the U.S. Constitution is not right wing. We're to the right of the parties, but the parties are actually both on the left. Maybe one a little further than the other, but they're both on the left.
Yeah, and that's also the problem of trying to pigeonhole something into a binary definition when it's multidimensional. There's a lot more to the form of a government than just right versus left or black versus white.
So the right really doesn't exist. So when you hear right wing, it doesn't really exist because either you're the U.S. Constitution or you're on the left. I don't know anybody that's on the right, and if they are, they're not going to last very long, and they're actually hoping for what's on the far left anyway. Every single person that claims to be an anarchist really isn't far right. They're far left because they want oligarchy. Their whole purpose of anarchy or craziness or democracy is to move to the left. All democracies always wind up on the far left.
You ever had that
100% government.
Have you ever had that conversation with a minarchist?
A minarchist.
That'd be like the Adam Kokesh.
Well, once again, though, the purpose is not really truly a form of anarchy. The purpose is oligarchy. They're just using anarchy as a tool.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, not to get into a deep debate on this. Probably the one sentence rebuttal they would give is that they want free markets for everything and no government, and they think the free markets can solve can be a solution to everything the government is solving. That's right.
That's the reason why the Constitution wasn't a far right document. It's a centralized document. You have to have some control, a little bit of control. You tend to want local government controlling things, and then just have some other controls at the larger level of trade with other countries or whatever. But there has to be a set of rules. You don't go out there and all right, we're gonna play this game. We just trust the players. Well, no, because there's gonna be those that while a lot of us would still play fair, and we play with our friends. There's got to be a set of rules, and so as a society, that's what we do. But at the same time, you don't want that set of rules to be all controlling.
The argument the argument I've used with Adam, and he's a good friend of mine. We've had a lot of lively debates over the last 7 or 8 years. I said
we're still waiting to figure out when he and I are supposed to meet. But go ahead.
I'll take care of that. But I'll keep getting on him. I'm supposed to go out to Arizona for his birthday in a week or two, so we'll see if that happens. We can talk more. But what I would tell him is the difference between his philosophy and mine is he's got a naive faith in humanity, and I happen to recognize that there are bad people. There's always going to be bad people, and because of those bad people, they're going to break the rules, and you have to have a way of dealing with them.
But the way you set up the rules is you don't have an all-encompassing power to enforce those rules. You set it up with checks and balances. You set it up with multiple suffrages, and that's what the founders did.
Yeah, they understood that the concentration of wealth and power was the biggest fear, was the biggest threat.
Absolutely. So in case of the removal of the president, this is continuing through the Constitution now. In case of the removal of the president from office or of his death, resignation, or inability to discharge the powers and duties of the said office, the same shall devolve on the vice president. So notice it doesn't say that the vice president becomes the president. It says that the duties will devolve on the vice president. And so, for example, when Woodrow Wilson had his stroke, they really didn't know what to do. All right, the powers devolve onto the vice president, but he's not really president. The president's still the president from their understanding of what the text said. So, and even with the 12th Amendment making some changes, it really still was saying the same thing. That the power was devolving upon the vice president. It wasn't until the 25th Amendment and the 20th Amendment, but mostly the 25th Amendment, that it said, hey, the vice president's president. Then it says, and the Congress may by law provide for the case of removal, death, resignation, or inability, both of the president and vice president. This is where we get into the 25th Amendment more, but when we get there, we'll get more into it. Declaring what officer then shall act as president. So even then, they weren't sure what happens if they're both ill or both have a problem. Then what do we do? So, this was, once again, you got to remember, we're a new country here. This is the first draft of a debate. And it's a brilliant document. But remember, they haven't gone through all of the trial and error yet. They knew what they knew from history. They knew what they had seen from the British Empire. They knew what they had experienced as colonists and under the Articles of Confederation. But they were still in this, let's try this phase. Let's try that phase. This looks like it should work based on what we know from history. But this is an experiment. It's all new, the American experiment. So now that we look back, over a couple hundred years later, we go, okay, yeah, they needed more context, more explanation, more, they needed to clarify with their verbiage better what they really meant. So some people even complain that the original articles of the Constitution are even a bit ambivalent or general in a sense. And I suppose you could look at it that way. If you understand what they meant based on their debates, it's pretty clear. But not everybody's going to spend the time like I did for that, to study that. So what does it say? So if people ask me, well, Doug, if you could correct the Constitution, the original first 7, what would you do? And I said, I would have clarified the language a little better. Now there's, I know what they meant, but it's less than clarified enough that people monkeyed with it. We're able to get away with monkeying with it. I think that the language should have been more specific on certain things. How can we, the people, remove a member of Congress, Senate, if they stop working for the people and only work to enrich themselves and the families? In the House of Representatives, you would have to wait until the 2 years is up, or you could push a movement among the members of the House to expel the member. In the Senate, originally, that was up to the state legislatures. They could yank them early, although George Mason and a few others disagreed, and then reappoint. Otherwise, you would wait the 6 years. Or, like the House, the members of the Senate could also expel a member. There is no recall procedure, however, when it comes to a member of Congress. And you wrote Congress/Senate. Congress actually means the House of Representatives and Senate. So you should have written House/Senate, which both are Congress. But Samuel, thanks for the question.
Kind of interesting how.
In case of justices, they would be impeached.
It's kind of interesting how George Mason was so correct about some issues and just dead wrong on others.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's nobody was perfect. It's kind of
Well, yeah. Well, it's like my friend. I have a friend of mine who's an Orthodox Jew, and I asked him. He says to me, "You know what you get when you get 10 rabbis in a room?" And I said, "No, what?" And he says, 20 different opinions. And that's kind of what we had going on here, do we not? We have a lot of guys in there, and while the general sense was the same, we had a lot of different opinions. George Mason refused to sign the Constitution. As good as it was, it didn't have a Bill of Rights, and in his mind, it didn't outlaw slavery, which, from what they were trying to do, that would have completely destroyed the whole point of it by outlawing slavery, because slavery is supposed to be a state-by-state issue, not the federal government's not supposed to dictate the states what they can or can't do. So that's part of the reason why they didn't. What they did is, when it came to slavery, is they addressed it from what the federal authorities would be, the external stuff, like the Atlantic slave trade. So, but George Mason still is one of the more brilliant minds of the time, and he definitely saw what we have going on right now coming. Samuel, yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, see, I do try to pay attention to the chat. All right, let's continue to read. Now we're outside the bracket. So what we just read, I wanted you to hear it so you knew what they were up to, but that has changed. But now we're back to what is in force. The president shall at stated times receive for his services. I love the language here. I want to repeat this. I want you to put it all together here. The president shall, it's mandatory, at stated times, receive for his services a compensation. So if you are given a compensation for your services, that's a little different than receiving a salary for your job. Now, while being president of the United States is a job in a sense, it was a service-oriented kind of idea. In other words, yes, I'm president of the United States, and it is a position, has a lot of responsibilities with it, but I'm providing services. It's almost like volunteering your time. It's setting aside your life for 4 years so that you could serve in this capacity. And since you're setting aside your life for 4 years, you're going to be compensated. In other words, you're not supposed to be a professional politician. The idea was politicians weren't supposed to be professional politicians. This is a service I'm giving to my country because I want to serve my country. Sure, I'm going to get paid for it. I'm going to get compensated in the case of the president, in the case of Congress. But it's just service. It's something that I've volunteered to do, and I'm going to receive a compensation for because it's important to me, and I believe that role needs to be filled by somebody like me. That's the attitude. Now we have politicians in Congress and in the presidency who act more like a ruling elite, that not only are they professionals there, but they're divinely appointed, like the divine right of kings. That's what it reminds me of. And you know what? They think that. Did you know that? I'll give you an example. I wrote an article about this and showed a clip of the video on my blog, Political Pistachio, when this first came out. Disney did a cartoon on Kamala Harris. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah.
I bet you can find it if you look it up and look hard enough. And in the cartoon, it says that she joined a divine group of leaders. So it says in the cartoon that she has joined a divine group of leaders. They really do believe they are rulers and that they're divinely appointed. But now wait a second. If they're divinely appointed, well, who's the God? And I'm here to tell you, the God that they worship is not the God you worship. It's the God of government or maybe something else. God is the government, and to serve it is to be divine. Because, as Biden said, when he was upset about what people have been saying about January 6th, and he wanted to say something about it, he talked about how they encroached on the, and I quote, sacred halls of Congress. And it's funny because I hadn't thought about that one until a video that Warhamster had turned me on to. The divine, which is not mentioned in that video, by the way, I knew already, but the sacred halls of Congress. Was it Brian McClanahan, right? Is that his name?
Yeah, Brian McClanahan, Brian with an O. He's got a great channel on YouTube. I watch him almost every day. There's about 25-minute constitutional stuff. And I would pay good money to sit in a room with Doug and Brian and just be a fly on the wall for hours.
I would love to meet this dude. But he's the one he's talking about this. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I think Ron's actually reached out to him. We need to follow up on that because we'd love to interview him. The guy's great. You're talking about the damn Yankees video. Yeah,
that's the one I'm talking about. The Puritan Yankees. Mm-hmm. If you watch the video. All right, so this is a service to be compensated. And look at what they've turned it into, is my point. So the president shall at stated times receive for his services a compensation which shall neither be increased nor diminished during the period for which he shall have been elected. Why not increased or diminished? Because we don't want Congress saying, give you a raise if you agree with us. Or if you don't follow what we're telling you to do, we're going to take away your salary or reduce it. They didn't want that kind of thing going on. So that's why it can not be increased nor diminished. And for the period at which he had been elected, and he shall not receive within that period any other emolument from the United States or any of them, from the United States being the federal government or any of them being the states. So an emolument being a salary as opposed to compensation. Emolument would be monies received or a salary or something of that nature. And so the idea is when you're president, that's your only duty to your country. We don't want you to be distracted by anything else, and receiving monies from elsewhere because you're doing something else for the government. Your total job is during this 4 years or 8 years if you get reelected of your time of service is to be that of executive president to execute the laws of the union. No distractions. Before he enter on the execution of his office, he shall take the following oath or affirmation. What's the difference, oath or affirmation? An oath is to God. An affirmation is not. It is your solemn word. George Washington, when he took this oath, he felt it necessary to add some words at the end, so help me God. And he felt it necessary to put his hand on a Bible. This was a godly thing to him. If he's going to give an oath, if he's going to swear to God, he wanted to make sure it was right. So he wanted his hand on a Bible. And he wanted to add, so help me God. And because he did that, it has become a tradition since. Now, the interesting part of that story is he says, I'd really like to put my hand on a Bible. Does anybody have a Bible? Is there a Bible in the area? And no, there wasn't. Well, where was the closest Bible? Down the street at the nearest Masonic temple. You want to talk about some interesting irony when we look back at our history. I'm still doing some studying, some research about Masonry at the time. So please don't ask me my opinion just yet I have my opinion about Freemasonry and the fact that most of the founders were Freemasons, but it was a little different than what has transpired since when it comes to what Masonry is all about. And I'm still doing my research. When I've got that on target and done, you'll be among the first to find out. So keep coming back to this show so that you don't miss that. But so they went to that lodge, that Masonic temple, and they retrieved that Bible. They brought it to him. He put his left hand on it. He raised his right hand, and he gave the following oath. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Now, I want you to, so help me God. So, but that's not in the Constitution. But I want you to think about what is said there. I'm going to do my job to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. His oath was not to the government. His oath was not to preserve and protect the government. His oath was not to preserve and protect the ruling system that was being created. His oath was to preserve and protect the Constitution of the United States with the authorities as they were presented. And remember, this is a guy that also believed what all of them believed, or at least most of them, I think all of them believed, from the Declaration of Independence. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form. If the government becomes a problem, the people have a right to abolish it or alter it. When a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their duty to throw off such government. So it's not just a right, it's a duty of Americans. And the guy who's holding his hand up saying, I swear, understands that. And so in the oath, it doesn't say to preserve and protect the government, because that government can be thrown off. The people have the right and the duty to do so if it's acting in a manner that's not following the Constitution. His oath is not to the government. His oath is to the Constitution.
And it most certainly is not to a political party.
And it's definitely not to a political party. What political party are you a member of, Warhamster?
None.
What a shock.
I have never been a registered Republican or Democrat. I was once a registered Libertarian, but I got too close to the sun and saw how the cookies were made there and walked away from them.
So you're like, so instead of being Icarus and flying into the sun, you decided at the last second to pull back. Or Icarus, I'm sorry, proper.
That's how Iron Maiden pronounced it. If Iron Maiden says it's Icarus, it's got to be Icarus, right?
It's Icarus. Wow, you're good. Warhamster and I have had these discussions about music and baseball and a few other things. And I tell you, Warhamster never ceases to amaze. The man is a walking encyclopedia on certain things. Now, that said, so then what happens when there's an insurrection? Is insurrection against the government, I said this earlier, or against the Constitution? They're there in the government to preserve and protect the Constitution, and it says in the Declaration, it is our right and our duty to throw off government if it's not following this. So the people, if they did what they're being accused of on January 6th, which it wasn't, but let's just say it was true, they were carrying out their constitutional duty, their natural, let me rephrase that, their natural right duty. Then, who's the insurrectionist? The people being accused of being insurrectionists, or the people who are making the accusations? Because they are not defending and protecting this document. Because they're going outside the authorities granted. And that ends Article 2, Section 1. So Article 2, Section 2 next week.
You mentioned baseball a little bit back. I wanted to share a fun little story from the weekend. I had the opportunity to meet Seth Keshel, who's been, if you guys all know, he's been great on the election integrity stuff. He's a huge baseball fan, and I got a chance to talk to him a bit, and we got into it in baseball trivia. He stumped me on one, I stumped him on one, and we agreed to get back together and do it again sometime. And hopefully he'll come and do a show with me and Ron. And Ron can keep up with us on baseball. I'm going to say he doesn't know, he's not perfect on the statistics, memorizing numbers, but in terms of knowing
used
baseball,
to be, but I don't remember him like I used to.
Yeah, none of us are like we used to. I mean, I used to be able to, once upon a time, I could tell you everyone's birthday when I memorized the baseball encyclopedia as a kid, but that's faded somewhat. But yeah, Seth Keshel was very generous with his time, and it was a pleasure meeting him. But what's funny is, I'm a legit 6'3", and I was wearing flip flops, and here's Seth Keshel, who's like 6'6", legitimately, and he's wearing these boots put him up another inch too higher. We took a picture together and made me look like a midget.
I felt that way next to Charlie Kirk.
How tall is he?
5'10". Charlie Kirk's like 6 foot 102 or something. I don't know. He's like 6'5", I think. But I think he's maybe 2 inches shorter than our good friend Dennis. But yeah, I felt that way with Charlie Kirk. All right. Joseph says, I love this class. I appreciate that. B Lady, when it comes to Congress, yeah, you either have to wait for an election or them to expel. This is where we're supposed to be in touch with our fellow Congress critters, and they're supposed to be smart enough to expel unconstitutional members. The problem is they're all guilty, so they're not going to expel what they are. Joseph then says, I think the scumbags in Congress forgot there is a constitution. No, the problem is they don't think the Constitution is a constitution. They think that case law and judicial precedent and judicial opinion is the Constitution. That's the problem. They're worshiping an annotated version of the Constitution rather than defending the true version of the Constitution. Thanks, Chris. The thanks goes right back at you. I love doing this. I appreciate doing this. I'll be back in my bunker in Murrieta next week. Until then, you guys have a dry week down there in Southern California. I'm up in Oregon right now, and it's not raining right now, but it was yesterday like a Dickens, man. And actually now the forecast has changed a little bit where it's not supposed to rain till I'm on my way back the rest of the week. So I should have some dryness. I might actually cut some firewood for my next trip because we used all of our firewood. I have none left. Can
I do a plug before we sign off?
Plug away.
With Doug's absence in our local class in Carlsbad, California, I have gotten into the habit of teaching the class in Doug's replacement. I do different topics in the Constitution, and this week I am going to be going through the 1980s savings and loan scandal and how that ties into the Bushes, the Clintons, the Mafia, and the CIA. You guys can all actually watch that if you go to 1776foreverfree.com and click on Learn, and you can purchase a ticket to Dr. Cordy Williams' nonprofit, and you can Zoom in on the show. And that'll be 6 o'clock Pacific time this Thursday.
Very good. I think I might try to get in there, but since
it's a fun
in the class, I'm gonna try to get a free ticket because
I think I can arrange that for you, Mr. Gibbs.
I think you might be able to arrange.
since I'm the one who now sets up the Zoom.
Yeah, yeah. Shoot me that link because I would definitely like to be there, and I think the class would get a kick out of the fact that I'm on the Zoom.
No, that'd be fun, especially if we get some of the people from this class in there as well. I can't really follow the chat while I'm talking, but we have one of the people in the audience watching it on the phone, and he'll shout out any questions so that we can actually interact with you.
And let me say this on my way out. everybody's talking about how much they enjoy this class and so on and so forth. My question then to you is, now that you have some of this knowledge, what are you going to do with it? I ask that you do something positive for our republic with it, and that you continue to learn. Be a forever student, be informed, and then do something with it. Be also an advocate for the Constitution out there in the public. All right, everybody, appreciate.
And here I am saying goodbye. I just wanted to let you guys know I had a I'm in contact with somebody who is um some exciting things ahead on how we can act at a local level. Things that we can do about bond issues and going after politicians and inundating these people who say that they're there serving our best interest, but they're really not. So things that we can do to go after,
You go after
uh,
their insurance.
and what he wants to do is he's very knowledgeable, and he wants to come in and he wants to support content creators, people like myself, and uh, excuse me, and how to basically show us how to do, educate us on what to do, on how to do it. And if we this would kind of be like the ants getting together and purging the grasshoppers, and the grasshoppers can't handle all of the ants that are um they won't be able to handle the volume. So
It's amazing how quick a swarm of ants can get rid of a carcass.
right. So it's but he says, the a lot of people out there who are they have channels, and it's great information they're providing, but they're not giving you they're not providing any information on how we can have any impact at the local level, on things that we can do that really, throw monkey wrenches in what they're doing. It's, it reminds me, if I can harken back to an old movie, the 1976 version of the Battle of Midway. Um, the When the Japanese ships were trying to launch an attack against the Midway Island, they had a layer of fighters that were above everything, that were protecting the carriers. Well, when the Americans had three aircraft carriers in that battle, and they sent in different waves. And as you know, with each successive wave, what they did was they drew the fighters down to fight them, and ultimately what they did was they got rid of they distracted the fighters to such a point that the last wave of dive bombers that came in were able to attack the Japanese carriers unmolested, and they sank three of the carriers in that final attack. Um, and he says, yeah, but this is we can't do anything while we're busy dodging the we can't launch our fighters while we're busy dodging these airplanes. They're using up our fighters, and that there's the thing that you learn from that is that we as a people, by sitting at home listening to videos, yeah, we're learning stuff, but we're not really affecting any change. We have to get out there, and even if the stuff that we do costs us money or costs us time, it still it forces them to have to do something. And when you force the bureaucrats to have to do everything, I mean, you know how slow the government works as it is. Well, when you force them to have to do everything to respond to things that we're doing, and it has a negative impact on them, and they don't do it, it's like, if you file a court case and somebody you file a case against somebody and they don't show up to defend themselves in court, you win by default, because it's a perfect example. Let's say you get a speeding ticket, and you go and you challenge the speeding ticket in court, and the police officer doesn't show up. Well, guess what? You win the case by default because the police officer didn't show up to defend him, to defend his ticket, right? So that's the same principle here. We're not doing the things that we need at the local level to challenge these people on such a on such a large enough scale that it's impacting them. And that's
Well,
and
I
that's
tell you what, that's one of a number of ways, and it has been working in other states. Here in California, though, the bonding is interesting because in other states, they are individually bonded. Here, it's a blanket bonding by the state, which makes it a very interesting scenario. But there's so many things. But as I've said on this show from the very beginning, it all starts local. One of the things that I've been doing is talking to school boards, and I've now got at least one, sometimes three members of school boards in communication with me, saying, "I want to learn more about what you presented." So there's so many ways being an influencer, the bonds. But thing is, if you don't show up, none of it happens. You got to show up. You
you
got to
know,
be a part of it. You got to get to know what this stuff is and be a part of it.
Doug, I think one of the things that you do very well when you go to the school board meetings is when people get to hear you speak, they if you they never get to they don't know who you are.
Mm.
And I love the audience here. We are we are a tight group, a tight knit family here. We can pretty much count every week that we're going to have at least 40 people, and of those 40 people, 95% of them are regulars. They're always here,
Mhm.
and it's great. I love the camaraderie. I love the community here, and but this class truly needs to be 10,000 people watching so
It
that
should
we
be.
know who
Yeah.
it's what it should be. So and I know that it's difficult. I know, uh, styles are different, and maybe people don't like Doug, maybe people don't like me, maybe people don't like Warhamster style, whatever for any
Well,
reason.
I don't know. I don't know how anybody can not like War Hamster. But anyway, go ahead.
But the point being is that not we may not be able to reach every single person
Sure.
just because that's it's just we're not naive enough to think that we can, but we need to try. We need to be more proactive and get people involved. And a lot of times that doesn't necessarily require to red pill them to to a lot of the evils that are going on in the world. It needs to apply to the evils that are going on at the local level. And if you and we need to show people how that impacts them. So
And there was a comment in the room that by Derek, which I really liked because it really is what this class should be doing for people. I have learned a lot from this class. It has just driven me to dig more. Exactly. Dig more, not just in knowledge, though, but dig more in what you do. And all of us have different skill sets. We're not the same people. Thank God that equity really doesn't exist. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a job because you'd all be constitutionalists. But whatever it is you do, add to it and dig deeper. Because here's the reality: this is not a political disagreement. We are at war. We are
we
at
are
war, and we
we are
better
at war.
act like warriors.
It was declared on November 9th, 2016, when Hillary and Bill showed up wearing the royal purple, signifying the beginning of the purple color revolution. And you can go back and look at all their pictures. They've never, ever worn purple before.
Very interesting.
And you all know the color of purple is
Mhm.
royalty.
Right.
That's exactly right. It's the imperial purple. God, that's hard to say. Imperial purple. Can I buy a vowel?
Samuel says you need a Mandalorian costume.
I saw that. Send it on
As
over.
yeah.
You can.
Any
I have
artists
no.
out there want to put a hamster in a Mandalorian costume, armed to the hilt, or
My
hamster will be happy to see it.
My graphic art skills it pretty much ends at stick figures.
Yeah, so you got some great people that do stuff for you.
Yeah, all of these ones you're seeing were people that donated to them on patriots.win or greatawakening.win.
Well, the good news is I don't have to run out the door to go to some class or something right now, so I'm still with you. But
Want to hear the, you
but
want to
I
hear
am at a
the,
neighbor's house because he has internet that I don't have, and I'm surprised he has internet. Of course, he pays a pretty penny for satellite internet, like 4 times what I pay at my house in Marietta.
do you want to hear the trivia question that Seth Keshel stumped me on?
Yeah, I am curious. I was going to ask you off camera, but since you want the audience to participate, go for it.
Well, first of all, I got him on the first designated hitter. And then he came back with who's the only player to play for all 4 major league teams that originated in New York? I didn't get it. I had no idea. But the answer is Darryl Strawberry, which was interesting. I had to go look up to see when he played for the Giants. I think Ron was curious about that too. I was actually at a game at.
I'm immediately thinking of a guy like from back in the 30s or something. 50s or something, or 40s, or
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah,
that's right. He's been a Dodger, a Giant, a Met, and a Yankee.
Uh-huh.
Very good, Darryl Strawberry. That's a good one. I like that one.
That's a good question. It was worth sharing. I was actually
at least he wasn't an angel.
Don't get me
I'll
started.
pretend I didn't hear that.
Or a Padre.
Hey now.
You're outnumbered now. You better stop right there. Need to get Mr.
Well,
on with bigger influences like Health Ranger, another with Patriot Street Fighter, maybe InfoWars. I've been on InfoWars twice before in print. In other words, they took one of my articles, put it on Infowars.com. Also, video platforms like Brighteon, Rumble. I have actually set up accounts on Brighteon and Rumble. I just have not started putting videos there yet. But thank you very much, Joseph.
Joseph, just FYI, we are associated. This class originally started with Patriot Street Fighter. It was Scott was the host of this until he went on the tour. Whether you may or may not know, but I was I'm still close with Scott, but we've kind of we not in separate ways, but we just kind of do different. We just have different roles now. But I still maintain this class, and it's still associated with Patriot Street Fighter. I just disassociated the link from Patriot Street Fighter for YouTube because we still realize the YouTube is the battlefield of where of ideas. This is where we need to be because this is where we're going to reach more people. So
hopefully, saying Patriot Street Fighter doesn't hurt this.
Yeah, but I mean, if you I'm still very closely associated with Scott. And we spent some time together this past weekend in San Diego. So and I have every time that I get on, I've been on my Jayco's show. I've been on David Rodriguez's show several times, and I pumped this up. And I actually had a discussion with a gal from American Media Periscope, and they're contemplating maybe giving us some press. So we're trying to do what we can to get the word out there for this. So,
and guys, I'm also working with Doug and about 5 other of the students in live classes. We're a bunch of people with some pretty good business ideas, and we're actually working with Doug to help him grow his reach. And I think we got some pretty good ideas working right now.
Yeah, I think so.
We've got another trivia question in here, and I actually know the answer to it. Samuel asked, has there ever been 2 triple plays in the same game? I know the answer.
Yes, but I can't remember.
I know it happened in the 90s.
Yeah, I remember when it happened, as a matter of fact, and I can't remember the situation.
I'm just asking, was it the same team that turned into 2 triple plays, or was it just 2 triple plays? It was the same team. Was it the White Sox?
Nope, it was the Minnesota Twins.
Huh.
Yep,
Kirby Puckett days still, right?
Yeah, it was early 90s. That would have been, Puckett would have been there. I don't remember the players involved or how they actually went. That's just one of those trivia things that popped into my head. Good question. I like that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Doug, I can help with social networking and video platforms and website design. I'm actually looking to talking to some people about website design. Joseph, send me an email. You got a pen ready? Send me an email at Douglas V. Gibbs, my name. And I typically don't put this out there, so don't everybody suddenly start writing to this address. My public address is a different one. Douglas V. Gibbs at Reagan.com. Like President Reagan, REAGAN. So DouglasVGibbs@Reagan.com. Contact me at that email address and we'll talk. I do have a BitChute page. I do have Telegram. Then I'm on it, but I haven't been putting anything out because I haven't figured it out yet. I also am on TikTok. Interestingly enough, everybody's against TikTok, which I am because it's Chinese, but at the same time, there's a great conservative community there. I haven't even put anything out on TikTok yet, and I've been there just making friends and stuff, and I've got over like 700 people following me, and I haven't even put anything out yet.
Jeez,
but
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm out there in some ways, but part of my problem is, as you might notice, one of the older guys, and so some of this newer technology befuddles me a little bit. I know I'm really good at the Constitution. That other stuff, not so much. So any help is always appreciated. Donations are always appreciated. I mean, there's, buy my books, DouglasVGibbs.com/store. I've got an order. Matter of fact, I got to fulfill today. But because yes, I brought a bunch of my books with me. And so that person's going to get the stamp that says Brookings, Oregon, instead of the usual California. But save that one because it'll be a collector's item someday, I hope. But yeah, if anybody wants to help out, DouglasVGibbs@Reagan.com. I would love to hear from you. Say that again, Joseph. Douglas V. Gibbs.
I just tell him I just typed it in.
@Reagan.com. Yeah, okay. He just typed. Yeah. Warhamster just typed it in.
Look up 2 comments, Joseph, and just cut and paste. Make it easy on you.
Yeah. That's my personal email, so please don't put it out there. But I check that one like 2 or 3 times a day. My public ones, if they get once a day, they're lucky.
It's tough running with like 4 or 5 email addresses, but I do it. And
I've got 6.
Yeah, it gets hard.
Yeah. All right. Wow. Appreciate. Love this group. And Ron, God bless you. You're a warrior. And I've wasn't as close to my father, but I've lost my father. So in a way I can relate, but I can never truly relate. And I truly do give you my love and my sympathy.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And I just feel blessed that the last time I was over at your place, I had the opportunity to spend some time with him.
Yeah, my dad at the service today, I learned a lot about him that I didn't know. So it was kind of put me. Yesterday I did. We did the glitch, and I kind of was able to suck it up. Today was a little bit harder just because of the service. Kind of put me into a little bit more of a somber mood. Happy, but still somber. So,
well, I love you, brother. I appreciate all you do. You are an incredible person in all that you do. Warren Hamster appreciates you, and audience appreciates you. So I'm going to sign off with my usual radio sign off. United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America, and God bless you. We'll see you next time.
And I will say that that a lie does not become truth just because it's accepted by a majority.
I like that. I got to come up with a catchphrase to sign off with next time to keep up with you guys.
Well, the other one I like to tell people is this. Before government makes sure you won't resist, it will make sure that you can't resist.
That's
I should actually use my famous catchphrase is all wars are banker wars.
All wars are banker wars. I've borrowed that, but I always say it was Warhamster that told me. I always make sure you get the attribution.
Joseph, no, this was not the last class.
It'll be every
week, and then when we get to the end, we'll start over again.
And
this class will run in perpetuity.
We can always mix in a couple of other fun related topics, in the interim between ending the class and starting a new one.
Well, and my discussions also change a little bit. Like I talked a little bit about stuff today that I don't typically talk about. So just because we're going through the same part of the Constitution again in the future, there's going to be things because of what's going on in the world or whatever that's going to be in the class that's going to help you understand. And also the other reason why this is so important, this class is so important, is understand it's not just a class, is it? This is a community that you have joined to fellowship with like-minded individuals. And that fellowship is incredibly important.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
All right, so
All right.
fellowship, I'm
Well,
gone.
on
I
that
gotta
note,
go.
guys, I'm gonna cut this off so that I can get to some things. My aunt is here from Texas visiting, so need to be in there and spend time with her and my mom. And but anyway, appreciate everybody. Thank you for your well wishes and prayers and thoughts, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.